This is a real-life story. All names have been completely removed due to serious security concerns and the personal safety of the individual involved. The survivor remains in a vulnerable and dangerous situation. All city and location names remain exactly as they occurred. They drove him into the desert outside Riyadh in the middle of the night, tied his hands behind his back, soaked his body in petrol, and struck a match. The men who did it were completely certain he would burn to death. They were certain God would judge him for his betrayal. They left him there because they were sure nothing would be left by morning. But he is alive today, and what he saw in those flames will change the way you understand God forever. Stay, because this is one of the most important stories you will ever hear. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you are watching from. Let us connect as one praying family across every nation and lift each other up before God. I am a 36-year-old man. I was born in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, into a family where faith was not just a practice. It was the air we breathed. My father was a respected imam at our local mosque. From the time I could walk, I walked to prayer. From the time I could speak, I spoke the words of Quran. By the time I was 12, I had memorized large portions of it. By my 20s, I was teaching other young men. This was not a burden to me. This was my identity, my purpose, my entire world. I loved it. Then something began to shift. Not suddenly, slowly, quietly, like water working through stone. During prayer, I started feeling like I was speaking into empty air. I had answers for every student who brought me questions. But alone at night, those answers felt hollow. I was doing everything right. 5 daily prayers, Ramadan fasts, charity, study, but there was no peace inside me. Only duty, only effort, only the relentless work of trying to be righteous enough. One ordinary day, I took my car for repairs and walked to a nearby shop for tea. The man behind the counter was a foreign worker, the kind of person I had barely noticed my entire life. But when he handed me my cup, something stopped me. His face carried a peace I cannot name, a genuine kindness that was not performance. I left that shop and could not stop thinking about what that poor foreign worker had that I, an imam's son, a religious teacher, did not have. Weeks later, late at night on my computer, I stumbled across information about Christianity. My first reaction was anger. I told myself I was only reading to better refute it in my teaching, but that was not fully true. Curiosity had taken hold of something deep inside me. I read about Jesus, not the Prophet Islam had taught me about, something fuller, something more. I read about a God who pursued people rather than waiting for them to prove themselves worthy. I read about salvation described as a gift, not earned, not achieved, simply given. That word stopped me completely. A gift. I had spent my entire life trying to earn what this text said was freely offered. I closed the computer and went to pray. But the question followed me everywhere. For almost a year, I lived 2 completely separate lives. By day, I was a respected religious teacher. I led prayers. I taught classes. I corrected students who showed sympathy toward Christianity. Every time I did, I felt something tighten in my chest. By night, I was a man secretly reading the Bible on his phone, hidden beneath Islamic apps, with the screen brightness turned all the way down so no light would slip under the bedroom door. I found a verse in the Gospel of John where Jesus described himself as the way, the truth, and the life. Something happened inside me when I read those words that I cannot fully explain. They felt alive. They felt true. Then I read about the cross, about Jesus dying to pay a debt human beings could not pay themselves, and something broke open to me like a dam giving way. All the years of trying to be good enough, all the fear of never measuring up, all the exhaustion of earning my way toward a paradise I was never certain I would reach. I sat at my desk in the dark and wept like I had not wept since childhood. I prayed, not a ritual prayer, not memorized Arabic, just my own voice, my own words, telling Jesus I believed in him, telling him I was terrified, asking him to help me. And the emptiness that had lived in my chest for years filled with something I had no prior reference point for. Peace. Real, unearned, inexplicable peace. The next morning, nothing looked different, but everything felt different. The double life was destroying me. My wife noticed I had become distant. A close colleague at the mosque warned me that my passion had cooled, that people were watching. One day my young son picked up my phone, and the Bible application was open on the screen. My heart nearly stopped. I told him quickly that I had been doing research for a class. He accepted it, but my hand shook for an hour afterward. Then came the Thursday morning that ended everything. I was teaching a class about Jesus from an Islamic perspective, and I explained the Christian understanding of the crucifixion honestly. Too honestly. A senior imam had entered the room silently and was standing at the back listening. After the students left, he called me to his office. He closed the door. He asked me directly whether I had been reading Christian materials, whether I had contact with Christians, whether I was doubting Islam. I thought about every month of hiding, every time I had denied Jesus with my silence, every time I had taught against what I privately believed to be true. I looked at him and told him the truth. I told him I had been reading the Bible. I told him I believed Jesus was more than a prophet. I told him I had come to faith in him. His face went from shock to horror to something like grief. He told me to sit down. He left the room and locked it behind him. I sat alone in that office, and I knew my life as I had known it was finished. They held me for questioning. My father came, the man who had taught me every prayer I ever knew, who had tested me on scripture since before I could read, sat across from me and looked at me with an expression I had never seen on his face before. It was not anger. It was something much worse. Grief and disgust fused together. He told me I was no longer his son. He said he would have preferred I had died as a child than to live to become an apostate. Then he stood up and walked out of the room without looking back. I was detained, questioned repeatedly, given opportunities to recant. I refused each time. Then one night, guards came. They told me I was being moved. They put me in a vehicle. We drove for a long time. I watched the lights of Riyadh disappear behind us as we moved into the open desert. By the time the vehicle stopped, I already understood what was happening. There would be no courtroom, no official process. This would happen out here where no one would see and nothing would remain to be found. Several men were waiting. Some I recognized from the mosque community. There was a pit dug in the sand. Rope lay coiled on the ground beside a large plastic container. The smell reached me before I could see clearly. Petrol. The leader gave me one final opportunity. His voice was almost calm. He told me all I had to do was declare the Islamic confession of faith. He told me to think about my wife, my children, my life. Everything inside me was screaming to say yes. Every instinct I had was begging me to survive. My mind raced through every possible compromise, every middle path, every way to say the words without meaning them. But I had already spent a year living that lie. I could not do it again. Not here. Not now. Not with death standing 3 meters in front of me. I told him no. I said I was a follower of Jesus Christ, and nothing would make me deny him. They grabbed me. They tied my wrists behind my back and bound my ankles to my wrists so I could not move. They rolled me into the pit, and the petrol came next, cold liquid soaking instantly through my clothes, through my hair, into my skin. The fumes were overwhelming. My eyes burned. My throat burned. I could taste the chemical on my lips, even with my mouth shut tight. I heard them step back. I heard one of them say something about purifying the land from corruption. I heard the scratch of a match being struck. I want you to understand what happened next as clearly as I can describe it. The match fell. The petrol ignited with a roar that was not like any fire I had ever heard. Blue and orange flames spread across the pit in an instant, and the heat hit me like a physical wall. My clothes caught fire immediately. And the pain. There is no adequate word for that kind of pain. Every nerve in my body was screaming simultaneously. My skin was blistering and splitting, and I could smell my own flesh burning. I screamed. Sounds came out of me that I had never made before and have never made since. I was thrashing against the ropes, and I could not move, and the fire was still burning. And I thought, this is where I die. Please, God, let it end quickly. And then, in the middle of that total destruction, I felt something I cannot explain by any natural means. A presence entered the pit with me. Not a vision, not a hallucination. A presence as real as the fire itself. More real, actually. I felt something like arms around me, not stopping the pain, but carrying it with me, not removing the fire, but standing inside it beside me. And I understood without hearing any audible voice. I was not alone. Jesus was in the fire with me. The pain did not stop, but I was no longer drowning in it. Then the fire went out, not gradually, not slowly. It simply stopped, as if a hand had closed over it. One moment I was burning. The next moment the flames were gone and smoke was rising for what remained of my clothes and my skin, but there was no fire. I heard the men shouting, confused, frightened, arguing with each other. One young voice said this was a sign. The older leader said something had gone wrong, and they needed to leave immediately. Someone asked what to do with me. The leader said to leave me, that I was badly burned, tied up in the middle of the desert. The desert would finish it. I heard engines start. I heard vehicles drive away until there was only silence and stars and the cold night air against my ruined skin. I will not tell you I was brave in what followed. I was in shock. I was barely conscious. I worked at the burned ropes for what felt like a very long time before they broke. Every movement sent fresh waves of agony to the burned skin on my arms and legs. I fell when I tried to stand. I fell again after I finally made it upright. I walked. I had no direction, no plan, no strength. I just walked because walking was the only thing I could do. I fell multiple times, and each time it took longer to rise. My vision was narrowing at the edges. My body was shutting down. I saw lights in the distance and changed direction toward them. I could not tell how far they were. My perception of distance and time had completely collapsed. Then I saw a vehicle parked on the side of the road, a man standing beside it, looking under the bonnet. I tried to call out, but my voice was gone from screaming and the smoke. I took one more step toward him, and my legs gave out completely. He saw me fall. He ran. His face appeared above me. Young, dark-skinned, wide eyes filling with horror as he saw the burns in the light from his vehicle. He could not speak Arabic, and I could not speak his language, but he pulled out his phone and made a call, and he took off his own shirt and laid it gently across me. And the fabric touching my burned skin was agonizing, but I could see on his face that he was trying to protect me, not harm me. He stayed beside me, talking in a language I did not understand, and I believe he was praying. I later learned he was a Filipino worker whose truck had overheated on that road at that hour. I later learned he was a Christian. God had placed him there. I woke up in a hospital. Bandages covered most of my body. The doctors told me later they could not fully explain my survival. The burns were severe, 3rd degree in places. By every medical calculation, I should not have made it through the night. My wife came on the 4th day. She stood at the foot of my bed and told me the mosque had informed the family of everything. She told me our children were with my father now, being raised in a proper Muslim household. She told me I could not come home, not while I remained an apostate. Then she left. I lay in that hospital bed and sobbed with a grief that made the burns feel small. My children, my babies, gone. But even in that darkness, the presence I had felt in the fire was still with me, quieter now, but steady, telling me I was not alone. To every Christian reading or watching this, please stop and pray right now for every believer in Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, North Korea, and every nation where following Jesus is a death sentence. They are real people enduring real fire. Your prayer is not a small thing. And if something in the story has touched something deep inside you, pray this right now. Jesus, I believe you are real. I believe you are the God who enters the fire with his people. Forgive my sins. Come into my life and make me new. I am yours. Amen. If you prayed that, your life has just changed forever. Find a Bible. Find believers near you. You are not walking this alone. Please share this story. Someone you know needs to hear that Jesus is worth everything. Like, comment, and subscribe to stay connected with this family of faith across the nations.